Thank you, Peter. And now I think it's the same problem as before, so we do also the other presentation from here, which is easier and faster. Let's go back to the beginning. And this is the other project which is being prepared during this day, which is Grande.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me introduce myself at first because I'm not in the program. My name is Klaus Thierfelder. I work as a project manager for Deutsche Telekom. It's a part within Telekom called T-Systems. Within T-Systems, we have concentrated all research activities, the biggest customers, company customers, and of course the research community. My biggest projects in the last years was the research network, the gigabit research network of DFN Verein in Germany, the so-called GWIN, the Grande network. T-Systems have delivered the Middle and the East European part of the gigabit lines in the Grande network, and we are now here within Zagreb. The 2 lines to Budapest and Vienna are also from T-Systems. Okay, now let's have a look more to the future. If you have current running business, you have to look where the networks are going to. And one of our ideas was to push the Grande project. Grande stands for Grid-Aware Network Developments in Europe. We like to design, build and run a European grid testbed. The goal is to prove that switched gigabit services can be implemented according to the requirements of the research community. This will be the first step. Secondly, we like to investigate if such services can be a service also for the carrier's portfolio, because the need in the research community is always 1, 2 or 3 years behind the normal market. The funding here should come from the European Commission. There should be a co-funding from the ISD program FP6, the call 2, which will be released in mid of June and closed in October. So next picture. This one, okay. What we will not do, we can't do research in all areas which are interesting for the research community. We don't like to do something about mobile communication or access. Access is also very interesting thing for the future. We like to focus on bandwidth on demand technologies, grid projects. It should be bigger on this picture. Next generation research networks and grid middleware development. Let's go a little bit more in detail with the last one. Okay, we have looked to the grid forum, what is available, and have found that there are a lot of grid applications are coming in the next years, where are a lot of grid middleware existing. For example, the Gara toolkit, and here more or less it's working together with CPU capacities, with database, MPLS networks. The missing link is to switch within optical networks. And this is the focus, what we like to do within the Grande project, to switch to have advanced reservation and switching within optical networks. This is, let me say, more overview how the architecture will be. T-Systems will provide 2.5 and 10 gigabit network between, you can see on the bottom of the slide, between London, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Prague, Geneva and Milano. On each of these POPs, we will build up switching equipment. I will explain a little bit more in detail later. And we will develop an optical UNI interface to speak from Gara to the network. Okay. On each POP, we will build up from different vendors equipment. It will be lambda switches at first. What we are looking for now is also to introduce gigabit Ethernet switches, and will do more work for level 2 and level 3 switching. So if you look more to the future, it will be a 3 years project. The biggest advantage is to get a more, and not only a multi-vendor environment, also a multi-domain environment. If you look for a connection between two host computers in Europe, between different countries, you have campus network, you have the NRAN network in the country, you have Dante between them, the networks, and so on. There will be a lot of investigation in this area, how to connect them together to have inter-domain functionality. Grande partners up to now, it's not closed, is T-Systems. We will be the prime contractor. Dante, of course, several NRANs. We have the partners from Czech Republic, from Germany, from Italy, from Ireland and Poland and Spain in the group. We have Terina and Research Center Jülich for the Grande toolkit and several vendors. We started with Alcatel and Lucent, and now it's open for other. We have a lot of discussions for Gigabit Ethernet. The interfaces, what we are focused is Gigabit Ethernet, 10 Gigabit Ethernet. Of course, we have also SDH interfaces from STM1 to STM64. And we will do restoration, advanced reservation scheduling, and things like this. Okay.
Okay, so this was the other big project which is going to be submitted to the Framework 6th, and we have a last presentation of another project, which is David. And the last project goes back, well, we started from EG, which is mostly application and client, went down to see what can be done at lower layers, and there is another project which, it's the same, but you can do it from there, yeah. It's the same. This one does not need any update at the last second. And this project is something which is not aimed probably to go in a Framework 6 call, but it's something which has been developed inside the community itself, but it is looking for partnership inside the community and can have a lot of partnership also from these other projects, because it is doing the part of authentication and authorization integration, which, for example, fits very well in the Globus toolkit and can do all this kind of stuff. So I will leave David present it as soon as it starts up. There you are.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So a little bit background to the project. What we want to do is integrate two existing products. PAPI is a web-based protocol from Red Iris, and that is actually been piloted at several universities around Europe at the moment, and you've probably heard about it. It was mentioned this morning. In fact, this project is actually building on the talks this morning of Ken Klingenstein and of the grid infrastructure. Yeah, PERMIS is a policy-based authorization infrastructure. It's role-based access control. It's part of the US NSA middleware release now, and that also has been piloted in the UK and in the US. Now, what we want to do is to take them further now, integrate them together by let PAPI be the protocol for carrying the information around, and then when it gets to the target site, PERMIS will make the decisions of whether the user has access or not. Now, at the moment, PAPI is written in Perl, and PERMIS is written in Java, and it's a bit difficult to fit them together. So what we want to do is migrate towards this OGSI infrastructure that was talked about this morning in the grid lecture, and we want to base it on SAML protocols for clicking them together. This is just a little quick picture to show how PAPI works for those people who are not familiar with it. A user logs in at his home site. After he's logged in, he then tries to access a remote site. When he accesses the remote site, the information that's sent from the authentication server of his home site is circulated around. Why is this not working? Okay, and PAPI then creates some short-term cookies for the user, which then allows the user to get into the home site, and there are some scripts that run at the home site to allow the user to access the the database or whatever he wants to access, and then the information is returned back to the user, and a short-term cookie is stored in the user's web browser, which allows him subsequently to get into the home site without any redirections. So that's PAPI that's working at the moment. Now, what PERMIS does is this is there a mouse here too? Yeah. Okay. When the access request comes across to a home site, then you want to know, is this user allowed to access this particular target to do this particular thing? And sorry, I'm just trying to get the mouse to it, the pointer to it. The access request is passed down to PERMIS here. And PERMIS then makes a decision based on a policy. So the site sets up its own policy. And this policy says who is allowed to access this resource and what they're allowed to do. And that policy is written in XML. And it's stored in an LDAP directory. So when the user comes in, there's a policy governing who can have access to the site. And the decision is made on the roles that the user has got. And these roles are stored in X509 attribute certificates in a standard format. So it's role-based access controls based on a policy. So when we integrate them together, then what we're going to do is PAPI will carry URLs from the user's home site to PERMIS to say you will be able to find the roles of the user at this URL. And then they will have a SAML interface so they can talk together now using the OGSI specification that was talked about this morning. So it will be standards-based, and we're actually working with the GGF on specifying this standard at the moment. And so we will conform to the standard that comes out of the GGF. PERMIS will then retrieve the roles of the user from his home site, and it will make the decisions based on this. But the other thing we want to do, which was brought out this morning in the talk, was privacy protection. They said that users don't want all their attributes and all their roles to be released to anybody, but they want to have some privacy protection. So we're going to build privacy protection as well by having a policy control at the home site to say only these attributes will be released to this remote site. And the final thread will be a user-friendly interface to allow administrators to set up these XML policies in a nice, intuitive way. And that's going to be done by the University of Malaga, and they're going to make it multilingual, and we're going to test it in at least 2 countries, and we're going to make sure that this interface is then usable throughout Europe, because it will be a fully configurable, multi-friendly user interface. So this is how it's proposed to work when the two are integrated together. So there'll be a SAML interface built into PAPI here, and there'll be a SAML interface built into PERMIS. Now, back at the user's home site, the user will still authenticate to his home site, but inside the user's home site LDAP directory now will be stored the user's roles. And there'll be this new PERMIS gateway which is configured to protect the roles according to an attribute release policy, so that only the user's roles that the policy says can be released will be released. And this gives privacy protection now to these attributes, because the user here may have a dozen or more attributes, giving him access to a dozen or more different sites, but he doesn't want any site to see all the attributes. He only wants them to see the attributes that are appropriate. So the URL for this LDAP directory will be passed in PAPI. The user wants to contact this remote site. The redirection of PAPI will be done as normal, but what will be created now will be a short-term URL cookie, and that short-term URL cookie will be passed back, and then PAPI will pass it as a SAML request across to us. We will use that URL to then fetch from the home site the roles of the user, and the gateway here, controlled by the policy, will only allow us to see because the privacy policy, the roles that we're allowed to see. We'll make the decision based on that, give granted or denied, and then the user will get into the resource. The answer will go back, and the short-term cookie will be stored there, so that next time we don't have to go through the redirections, and next time we don't have to go picking things up, and subsequent decisions will be made very quickly. So that's the proposed merging of the two products together, and the partners, Red Iris will add the SAML interface to PAPI. which will actually move PAPI a step forward to merging with the grid and with Shibboleth. They will modify the authentication server to add these local URLs instead of their existing cookies. University of Malaga will build a multilingual user interface for managers at home sites and at target sites to set up their policies in a user-friendly way. And the University of Salford will add the SAML interface to PERMIS and to our privilege allocator, which allocates the tokens, and will modify PERMIS to accept this URL to tell us where to go to fetch the attribute certificates. Okay, so that's it. I've got also a thing on costing. This is different to the other projects because the other projects are grid projects where the millions that they're wanting are coming from the European Commission and the small amounts are coming from Trina to support this. This one, we're not going to the European Commission. We're wanting the community as such to fund it, and the total cost is €148,000, and Red Iris are putting in 43,000, the University of Salford put in 24, University of Malaga put in 24. Trina have provisionally agreed to put in a small amount. If we can get 4 or 5 other NRENs to put in something like €10,000 each, then that will allow us to go ahead with this project. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for also this presentation. Well, another thing which David did not say is, well, you could not only find NRNs, you could also find projects which can help in doing that. I mean, if there is a project which needs this kind of stuff, well, why not? Now, I believe that the floor is open to question to all of the speakers, and maybe it's better that all the speakers come over here so we are ready to discuss among ourselves and to answer the question. As you have seen, all these presentations were about things which we believe we can do in the future, in the next year. And, of course, one of the first questions is, what do you think that Terrena role should be in all this project? I mean, some of the presenters already said, well, we want you to be the coordinator, or we want you to be the disseminator, or we want you as the umbrella which brings in the NRNs and the users community and so on. Of course, there are also other questions which are coming from our community, which means, well, what are you exactly going to do? Some of the projects look very similar to each other. Are you overlapping? Are you going to coordinate? How are you going to prepare the proposal and so on, of course? So, questions, please. Yeah. It's better that you use a microphone because we are streaming.
Yeah, my question is how are all of these projects related to Jant? What's the role of Jant? And what will be the future? Are you going to replace Jant? Are you going to cooperate with Jant, put just your research into the Jant 2 network? Okay, well, that's because in almost all of the projects there was Jant word somewhere.
Okay, so we go around.
Okay, so just a brief comment first. I think EGE is the one that is a client of all the other projects, so we don't compete. But seriously, many of the things the other projects are producing are potentially services EGE would want, and conversely, EGE is not there to develop services per se. So that's good. We're everyone's friend, perhaps, or probably not. Now, in answer to your question, EGE itself assumes to use Géant as its core connection. It will not assume to use anything else. I mean, far from it. Thus, it will attempt to use value-added services built upon top of Géant, and in fact, we have been talking very closely with the NREN's Dante about that. Okay, we would pilot the use of services from other projects if it was appropriate, but fundamentally, Géant underpins EGE.
Yeah, from Grande project. Yeah. We built up a parallel network, parallel to Grande, so it seems it can be a competition, but it isn't. Yeah, what we like to do, we like to do optical switching with bit rates with 2.5 and 10 gigabits. Yeah, these are not available within the Géant network in parallel. So, yeah, what we like to do with Grande is that we like to test which services, what possibility maybe can be asked for the next Grande network, for Grande 2, or how it is called.
Sorry about Géant. I said do marketing, but don't.
Okay, well, PAPI PERMIS is middleware, and so in that respect it will work over any network, and so we're happy to work over Géant, Internet, or whatever.
So Garden is definitely also setting up a new high-speed optical IP and optical network. That's the whole goal about Garden. We want to do IP fast packet switching, fast packet forwarding up to speeds at least 10 gigabit or 40 gigabit, or we'll see what comes throughout the available throughout the project duration of the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm pretty sure we will see even speeds up to 80 gig. I can't guarantee now that we will have products ready to put that into, but definitely this is the main goal. So we will do interoperability testing with other networks. So we will definitely do interoperability testing with Géant and as well as with Grande and others. But the main goal is to have a new network which is whole IP and optical.
Not being a project makes it a little bit easier, but I think the most important for let's say, the Estonian ideas is that the people who want to connect to this kind of projects are able to do that, even if they don't have, let's say, 10 gigabit or 2.5 gigabit free lambdas available, but perhaps they can use their Géant resilient link, because most of some countries have at least a resilient link to Géant. It would be nice to be able to utilize that link for this kind of projects.
Yeah, David.
So this is David Williams. I'd like to contribute to this by making a rather strong statement. I feel that if Garden and Grande work on the concept of having a completely separate network from Géant 2, the son of Géant, this is counterproductive for the NRENs in Europe. I think it is vitally important that, I mean, the ideas are good. Pure optical networking, higher speed is very important, but you must have access to it. So it's vitally important that universities and research centers that want to play with those sorts of things, it's not done completely separately.
I can only say I completely agree to this. So maybe at least my what I said a few minutes ago was misinterpreted. I didn't want to say we want to close that network. Of course, we want to connect research networks and do interoperability testing and have these research networks contributing in terms of running applications over Garden, for example. So this is very vital to make Garden a success and to make the technologies we test there maybe the basic technologies which can be used in a successor of current GR. So definitely this should be open. The only thing we want to be careful is in the beginning we want to start testing in a closed environment, because we want to first proof that we can, let's say, build a backbone, a core which can deploy 40 gigs or 80 gigs IP routing. Okay, once that is done, maybe in 1 year, maybe in 2 years, I can tell you now, when we definitely will open. That's the whole goal.
It's the same with the Grande project. You have seen the POP locations where nearly the same, where the Géant network is. Some of these locations where the Géant router is only some meters away, and it is definitely planned in this project that there will be gateways, for example, to connect Ireland or Poland, or also in parallel to Italy. We've discussed to have MPLS links via the Géant network.
Yes, and another topic which I believe is important to consider is, okay, well, access to a test bed, because these two are going to be test beds in the beginning, does not mean that you have the wire yourself at home. Very often it means that you can access the machine over there, and you have a gateway in between. I think 6net is a typical example of this one. You can bring yourself the IPv6 native link at home, but you can do tests also without having the link itself, because you access the control itself. Of course, if you want to play an IPv6 native application, then you need to have the protocol at home. But if you want to test routing and stuff like that, then you don't need. Yes, Olivier?
Well, I have to say that what Grande wants to do is very clear.
Speak louder or closer. No, it's on, it's on.
Okay, so what Grande wants to do is very clear. What Garden wants to do is also clear, but trying to be a bit more technical. How are you going to build an all-optical network, especially when you don't appear to have any tele as a partner? So, for example, let's assume you build a link between all-optical between Stockholm and Geneva. How are you going to do that, and with which technology?
We will use fiber from several partners, which we are incorporating in our project, and we will use wave division multiplexing, dense wave division multiplexing as technology.
No,
and we will use.
But how will you avoid? How will you avoid the use of electrical regenerators?
That's part of a project. I mean, so there are different things in the project from a technical point of view. I didn't say that we do all optical switching. We will do optical, electrical, optical switching. I cannot comment in the moment about all optical switches. Maybe we will include all optical if they come available. We will definitely use state-of-the-art technology. The main goal is more in, I would say, control of the whole optical plane by means of IP, and not getting into an all-optical switch development or an all-optical switch network. So we will use existing technology as far as possible. Of course, we will use the latest leading-edge technology, but the main goal is IP and optical. We will not do any SDH and optical and so on.
Yeah, but it's very misleading. You know that once you have electrical regenerators, you're obliged to do sonnet framing, in which case your IP over optical is in fact IP over sonnet. And as long as you don't have G709 deployed, I think it's just IP over sonnet or IP over optical is exactly the same.
Okay, we can use sonnet framing. We also will use gigabit Ethernet framing, depending on the technology. So we will use sonnet SDH framing. But again, there is, if you look to the IP layer will not be treated as just a client in an overlay mode. It will be a real peer in the final solution. So the IP layer will actually find the topology of the whole optical network, and will out of that topology then be able to determine an optimized path for a requested bandwidth. So sonnet SDH is just used as framing, completely true as far as possible.
Well, may I just ask you just to leave the technical, very technical detailed discussion, not now, but it's something which is going to be specified when we go down to project partners and so on. One of the questions that I really want to hear from the audience is, well, how much do you think that you are really interested in putting resources into the different projects? Because, of course, all these projects ask you for something. They ask you for collaboration, they ask you for money, because remember that all the other projects, they ask you money or effort, which is the same at the very end, to be a partner and so on. So one of the feelings that we are trying to get out, and also the people sitting here are trying to get out, is how much of you are really interested in commit something to them. So let's say I would like to know from the audience how strong is the interest. We have seen a list of names already sitting there. Saying here that I'm interested is not a commitment, is not signing anything, but it is showing that that's a community interest to do it, because that's one of the topics that we are worried about, do things that really the community wants to do later on. And if I hear silence, I say, well, nobody is interested, if I want to be provocative. or everybody is so interested that they're worried they're not going to do it, which is even worse. Yeah.
Perhaps what I also would like to know is that perhaps you don't know if you want to take part, but at least I want to know the reasons why you would like to take part or why you wouldn't take part in certain projects. You don't have to name the project, of course, but it is more the decision points why you choose for a project looking at optical networking or the other things, of course, or middleware or so. Yeah, but it's the decision process where a lot of people in the coming months will have problems with. Certainly when there are more than one project.
Exactly. Yeah. Can we have a microphone there in front?
Well, I think that SurfNet is really interested in joining some of these projects that were mentioned. Especially what we also see in our optical testbed is a multi-domain bandwidth allocation and reservation. That would be really good to progress on a more international scale than to invent the wheel all ourselves again.
May I ask the other one, which were listed somewhere in the other list, what do they think? Please.
I think in Poland we are also interested in participating in those projects. Although we see the situation when you get this multi-domain and complicated world of networking, and I'm really curious about, say, being just a single vendor solution and single domain. I'm not sure how this all project is going to be managed, but I'm from the very beginning with Aston, and we clearly state the objectives that in the European networking we have different technologies deployed, and we need to make them interoperate. And I would like to see that very much addressed in all of the projects. Then it's very interesting to be part of all of them, at least some of them. Yeah.
And also the other question is, what do you think that Terena itself should do in this project? Because it is not Terena staff which decided what we do, it's you which tell us what we should do in this kind of project. As you have seen in the brief presentation and proposal, yes, dissemination is there anywhere. Of course, we can do it. We are quite good in doing it, in providing a mailing list, website, and so on. But what else? Which kind of level of integration you want from us? Do you believe that the NRNs, for all of them, should be alone dealing with some of the project, or we should be some kind of umbrella which brings together the input from the NRNs inside the project? I mean, you can be at the university department doing some kind of research on optical or middleware or filtering for grid application, and do you want Terena to be the one which is able to feed in this kind of information into the projects and back? You want to do it directly? That is something which you should think very carefully and let us know.
I would like to, if it is possible, the point Michael made was about multi-vendor, multi-operator, and that kind of things. Is it possible that I get reactions, just unprepared reactions, perhaps from the two project or the other project also? But at least I would like to hear it from Garden and Grande.
In terms of multi-domain and multi-operator, in the first stage we definitely want to set up a single domain network, which is just the first thing we want to bring up and running. And definitely throughout the whole project duration we want to make that, and we have to make that multi-domain, multi-provider. That means then also having incorporated standard interfaces like, let's say, ENNI between different domains. And once we have that standard interface, then definitely we can get into interoperability testing with our vendors. So we then have automatically a multi-vendor equipment environment. So this is what we at least see as the main goal in Garden. The result, after 3 years of project duration, which starts 2004 and something in 2006 or so, should be being able to show dynamic bandwidth allocation over multi-vendor, multi-domain networks. IP-derived topology, IP-optimized topology is optimized for things like IP multicast, etc., end-to-end.
Okay, so I just wanted to get a plug-in for end-user applications. I'm not entirely sure what question it's answering, but I'll say it anyway. But seriously, I'm put in mind of a well-known slide from Kees de Laat of University of Amsterdam that motivates the idea that in the future there will be a large number of users that need layer 3 services for sending packets all over the place, but coexisting with a smaller number of very high demand applications that certainly don't need layer 3, and there's no reason that should be paid for if that's not cost effective. Now, I could reel off 2 or 3 quite high demand applications today. I think you know them all. And the plug I'd like to make is I think these projects should go out of their way to make sure they do proof of principle demonstrations that bandwidth on demand is of use to these. I mean, you're pushing an open door. I work in these applications and I believe it is so useful. Okay. And in answer to the Terrainer question, I mean, it's easy to have ideas, in a meeting that don't come to anything. But one thing you might do is engender some meeting, get-together of the end-user applications that think they might use this. A few of them do meet anyway and are involved in other projects, but perhaps you get a rather larger group of those together to exchange ideas, views on this.
Okay, let's try something. I mean, we have. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, where was the question of Victor was the multi-domain and the multi-vendor things what we will do in the Grande project. You have seen one of my slides with the multi-vendor domain. Okay, it will be more in the end of the project. We will start with at minimum 2 vendors, Alcatel and Lucent I have mentioned. With them we can do some multi-vendor environment. We like to introduce more vendors. We think about 3 up to 4, and from the multi-domain issue, maybe we get out of this meeting also some ideas how we can cooperate between the projects. There is a lot of possibility to have tests on this test bed from other projects. There are some fruitful discussions in the last weeks. Maybe we find solutions till end of in the next months.
David?
Okay, I have 2 questions, and one is a question for the audience, so I'll tell you what the question is, and then I'll ask my question to David Chadwick, and then we come back and you can have thought on your answer. So we're faced with an audience which is typical polite European audience. It's not like the American audience, we're all getting up and shouting at each other, but it's hard getting reactions out of you. So I'm going to ask for a reaction in a minute, which is, Terrainer's got limited resources. And we're often asked to be involved in dissemination and other activities in 5th and 6th Framework Programme projects. There are 3 on the stage today. So if we only had the resources to support one of these projects, e.g. Garden and Grande, which one should it be? So that's going to be the question.
We are on the 17th floor, remember.
We're going to ask in a minute. But I have a different question for the audience in connection with David Chadwick, which is that he's described a very clear project to integrate PAPI and PERMIS with very well understood costs. Question for the audience and or for David is, there may be other projects people should be doing in the area of AAA. Is this the project that the Terrainer community wants to see the NRENs and Terrainer supporting in this area? Is this the best project we should be doing in AAA? Reactions, folks? Sorry. Over there.
Could you? Yeah. So I'm first taking the opportunity of talking a little bit about the project that David has presented. You asked if it's the best project on AAA we can support. Well, I'm working in Rediri, so we are one of the proponents also. Apart from the precise elements that are over there proposed, like PAPI, which is a very mature system for AA, PERMIS, which is a very mature system for authorization. You should bear in mind that we are going to experiment with a new, but on the other side, the standard way of dealing with authorization and how to transmit information about user rights from the origin site to the target sites. Up to now, everything is going on the wire, in which you send everything about the user. Maybe using a sample session, using proprietary protocols, you're using everything from the origin site to the target site. Now we are going to test how to deal with trusted objects stored in the directory using attribute certificates instead of sending everything on the line. That means, first, that means that we are saving bandwidth. That maybe it's in this world of optical networks and gigabits and terabits and all the like, it's something that sounds a little bit not very in fashion. But we are saving bandwidth in small places in which with the last mile first. And second, we are also providing support for something that is very, very important when you're dealing with the AA system, that it's a very low configuration effort. You don't need to, if some of you have any time implemented any AA infrastructure, both in the origin and the target side, there is very complicated setup to establish the web of trust between the target and the origin side and how to validate the assertion you are receiving from one side to the other, etc. In that case, you are storing trusted object, and the only way you need the only configuration you have to perform in an intended target site is something like saying, well, you're going to trust this PKI, and you're going to just this, because in any case you are going to receive URL. So it's something that we hope it will scale very, very well, and will scale very well in very, very distributed computing environments like grids, for example. So we are not only dealing with an integration of two major projects, but also making some experiments on how the technology will evolve in the future. I don't know if David is completely agree with me, but.
Well, I think the point you make about saving the bandwidth is what it's written into the proposal is this will help mobile phones, because the person using a mobile phone who's wanting to interact on the internet, all that's transferred now will be the URL. Whereas if you in the current model where you're passing a whole bunch of attributes and credentials, that's a lot more bandwidth than passing a simple URL. And then the machinery at the back end, the site that you're actually accessing, will actually do all the passing in the PERMIS infrastructure. It will fetch your credentials from your home site, and the privacy policy will make sure that you only get the ones that you're allowed to get. So that's a benefit of passing this reduced bandwidth, even though, as you're saying, you've got gigabit networks at the back end. Well, that gigabit network will help the PERMIS infrastructure fetch the credentials back from the home site, which helps the user then who's using a very small bandwidth, maybe a mobile phone or something. The other thing you said about user interface, that's very important, because when you have these infrastructures, if you don't have an easy way of configuring and managing them, then it becomes very difficult to use. And people can often stop using things that are actually providing good service just because the cost of management and ownership is too high. So we've tried to address these issues by saying we're going to get the University of Malaga to produce this user-friendly interface, which can be piloted in both the UK and in Spain. We'll guarantee it's multilingual, and we'll guarantee that it's got this multicultural dimension to allow people to very easily set up the management infrastructure. So we have tried to address all the needs to give it a fully rounded product, and of course obeying the latest OGSI standards, so that even though we're integrating PAPI and PERMIS together, you'll be able to use them separately, because once they've got these standard grid interfaces, you could take PERMIS and put it into the grid. You could take PAPI and use it in a university environment that isn't using the grid. So with by putting this standard interface in there, we're making both systems better than they were before.
Yes, but I go back. Well, this is again explaining why you should buy it. But I'm going back to you buyers. David's question was very simple and very effective. The number of resources which are available at Terena and in the community itself are limited unless you want to pay more. And I can watch at somebody saying, I can increase the membership fee, and somebody will throw me tomatoes and add other vegetables. Don't worry about that. The question which is still on the floor and we don't have answer is, if you have to choose, what will you pay for? You can say, well, I'm willing to pay for every of this brilliant idea, but then I ask you to pay more, of course. Sorry for playing the treasurer, even if I'm the technical responsible. But that's the question that we are supposed to answer. We want to know if this is something which you really are supporting and you really are willing to happen. I mean, participating in the big project or in the small ones is something which is the community decision and the community pocket decision as well. So we're asking you a question, very simple. Well, David presented figures, very simple, very little figures maybe, but when it turns out that these figures are going to be matched, then they're not so little, apparently. They take a lot of effort. Of course, we can have the idea, well, why don't you have a big grid project as a customer or a subcontractor? That's another possibility, another solution. The other projects, well, they require that Terena does some activity in it, just not only bringing the know-how inside the project, but also doing activity. Doing activity costs money. Do we have the money? What about if you have really to choose? That is what I want you rudely tell us. What do you think should be done? Another idea which was thrown on the table yesterday in a closed meeting about the middleware activities, and which was said again this morning in the plenary very clearly. There are many different, not too well communicated middleware initiatives around, middleware software and so on. The idea which was thrown out on the table is, do we need a large, big integration project also in Europe, which try to do what Internet 2 is doing in the States, bringing them all together, bridging them, making them talk to each other? Do we need a 6-net middleware version, whatever it is? Any opinion from you? I won't let you go to lunch before you say something. Peter.
Claudio, I will not really ask your, not really reply your question, but I will ask another question. As I understand, at least both projects, Grande and Garden, will apply for 6 framework program. And from my understanding, this will result in some money flow from the European money to the participants. So I understand that in the project, in the small project to integrate PAPI and PERMIS, this is different. So why do we have to decide now that Terena, let's say, put some money into the same is true for EG, into the Grande Garden EG environment? So I give the question back to you.
It's not that we are deciding it now, but you are here supposedly to give the General Assembly of Terena an idea of what is the real interest of the community, and if there is a real interest of the community in doing a big or a small project, then we can discuss about the financial part of it. If we don't have an idea if this project is interesting or it is just two different guys which are presenting their ideas and nobody else will follow them.
No, maybe I didn't say it clearly enough. My understanding is that from the Framework 6 program, Terena will be paid and has not to pay by itself.
Are you going to sign it on blood?
No.
Usually you are paid to do some activity and you are supposed to put effort yourself, and effort means money.
To try and answer Peter again, the EU does not normally fund many activities at 100%. There are some, but Terena involvement in EG certainly will not be funded at 100%, and we can't know about Grande and Garden yet. The point of this session is to try and provide the Terena staff and the Terena responsible user community with the technical views of the best technical views of everybody. You know, you should be saying these are wonderful projects or these are rubbish projects, and then by the time we get to October in the General Assembly, we'll see if we can afford to fund these things. So, you know, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to my nasty thing. Let's assume we can only fund one out of EG, Garden and Grande. Who would be in favor of funding Grande? Nobody?
Nobody.
We're asking the wrong question, right? Okay, I shut up.
Peter.
Can I was just going to say the same thing. You're already in EGE anyway, all right? So
Exactly.
that's point one. Point two, it's apples, well, not even apples and oranges. To try and get out of it in a wishy-washy way, Garden and Grande have similar goals in the general sense of developing switched circuits, bandwidth on demand, and things of that ilk. And I would have thought what Terena should be doing is promoting the need and use of that. And in that sense, it can satisfy both, can it not, in one fell swoop? There you are, that's a diplomatic British way out of it.
I just wanted to add that Grande is obviously much more realistic in the short term. So you could expect results from Grande in terms of new services fairly quickly. And Garden is much more long term, which also means that the two projects for me are to some extent complementary. My only criticism of Garden is that it is a single vendor project. I think this should be fixed. But the aims are very interesting, but is much longer term. And of course, as to the middleware project, I think it should be funded anyway because it's obvious to me.
So I may.
Olivier has given a clear answer. Would anybody else like to summarize their views on these projects like that?
Yeah. Down there. Microphone there on the right. Okay, one is coming. It's off.
Have to wait? No. It was a comment regarding what you mentioned about a big middleware effort. I remember in November we ended a project on directories, who was called TFLSD. And at the moment there was some, I'm not sure it has been formally proposed to Terena to organize some kind of big forum on middleware related activities. Because the only forum we've got now, it's supposed to be on a very concrete area regarding AA systems. And there is a lot of issues open on directories, on digital rights management, on lower layer middleware, like the way in which you deal with bandwidth reservation and all that. I think there is a clear need of this kind of, I don't know if a project, a forum, or whatever, but sort of a way in which people dealing with these things across Europe sit together and at least exchange information on projects running on it. Maybe that in the future some real projects performing actual work will pop up from that. I don't know the official name, forum, assembly, or whatever.
May I just answer again back to the comment that Grande is something more short-term and Garden is something more long-term. I cannot see that because both will start once we get European Commission funding next year, 2004. at least for garden, it's true and it's planned that we will have a test bed running by end of 2004, which is full IP and optical integration already. The big question is only there will definitely be no standard peer model till end of 2004, because there is no standard so far and there will be no standard in 1 year from now. So there will be some kind of open interfaces being implemented. There will be also a lot of proprietary stuff implemented because there will be no standard. Having said that, the goal is definitely to have as proprietary things as much as open implemented as possible. So I expect that GMPLS, if GMPLS becomes the real unifying thing between IP and optical, will be somehow producing a set of standards, RFCs, till 2005, 2006, and once that happens, then Garden will definitely implement this. So I cannot see the comment being true that Garden is something just for long term. We will have an IP optical solution by end of 2004, mid or end of 2004. Please don't nail me down for plus minus 6 months. So, but I see mid of 2004, end of 2004 as short-term solution.
Yeah. I'll learn as well.
I completely agree with somebody who mentioned that Grande it's a more realistic project, because currently there are some solutions that you can have on the market, and in terms of the goal of the project in Garden, you really you can have a network now. You can have your goals, but the goal and the current network is a bit far away. And now with Grande, I see a bit closer.
Again, this is not true. We have actually up and running in our labs already the first version, which we will deploy next year once the project starts. So I do not see anything which is not realistic. It's simply a different approach, I guess, but I do not want to go into the technical details now. But I can assure you that we have set up in test beds already this type of network which we will deploy in a first stage throughout Garden in beginning of 2004. So the argument that it's not realistic is simply not true. I mean, it's there, and we do it. The only thing is there is no standard so far for IP and optical integration, or no set of standards, and this is true. But it will. I mean, we cannot. One big part of Garden, and I think also of Grande, should be to drive this standardization. So I mean, we cannot. It would be the wrong assumption if we would just go for building a network where everything is already available today. This research network should also keep the door open that we can drive standards into the direction we want them to go and where it really makes sense.
You have somebody sitting down there who is very interested in standards, Harald. Where is the microphone for him? Can you bring a microphone down there? It's off.
Okay, it's up. Speaking as an occasional participant in research activities, if you have 10 projects and all of them fail, you have a problem. If you have 10 projects and all of them succeed, you have another problem. You are adding zero value to the community. As organization of research networks as opposed to just an organization of networks for researchers. I think it's Terena's mandate in life to have projects that fail, because things have to fail in order to learn. We have to take chances in order to get anywhere. As a standardizer, I'm very, very worried that we are standardizing things for which the experiments either have not run or where the conclusions from the experiments are not in. Because standardizing things, having them implemented by 5 different companies, having them deployed in 20 different networks, and then figuring out that the solution cannot possibly work, is far, far more expensive than having another failed Terena project. I mean, the business of Terena should be to to do research and make research networks, not just to deploy what's already there.
Well, one of the things which I think we said sometimes, we have the right to make errors, just proving that the fact that an error is useful for something. We have the right to fail.
You have the duty to make errors.
Okay. I'm very good in doing them. Well, I can help you. Yeah.
Just one comment that people that are interested to know what the status of the development of GMPLS can look at some work done at the IETF, because there is also a draft that is just a survey of existing implementation, so from several vendors, and you will see that there are manufacturers but also software vendors and so. So it's a good overview to know what it is available today, experimental code or production code, but you may have a interesting overview from this link.
Thank you, Mark. And the other question which is still hanging around, just before I pass you the microphone again, is, well, I've heard, well, the middleware stuff has to be done anyhow. Maybe it has to be done anyhow, but if it is not done, something is not going to work. So it has to be done anyhow, but by whom? By ourselves? I believe so. So I would like to know that you say, yes, it is going to be done by ourselves. We don't wait for Internet 2 people to do it for us, or from a company to do it from us. So also please comment on this one later, please.
I wanted to have another question for both projects. It's not the answer to your question, Claudio, but I was thinking about the end-to-end approach of both say optical projects. How they're going to address end-to-end requirements. Everybody's speaking about grids and people with advanced applications, and in Grande there are multiple domains. In Garden there are some network layer 2 connections between NRENs, POPs. How maybe it's a technical question, but how are you going to connect end user? How are you going to have end user influencing your test beds, your research? Because we have more and more grids, as we could see today in the morning and yesterday, and I'm worried that some of the research, they go into the area of pure research on the interfaces, on the technology, but not really to the end user. We test mesh restoration, but none of the NRENs has a mesh restoration deployed, because they usually use rings. So I guess one day we'll face end user problem as well in this project. How do you address that?
I can't give you an answer because it's a big outstanding problem that needs to be solved, but from the point of view of the thought that's gone into EGEE, which I remind is focused on from the point of view of the user, exactly the topic you've said is one of the main areas we identified as in EU parlance joint research activity. So in other words, how an end user through some sort of an API, call it a grid API, makes a request for some service that is then handled by an appropriate bit of software that looks up a policy. And by the way, that's why I would jump up and down and say the stuff that David spoke about and others working in that field, why it's very important to try that. A user makes a request to something, looks up a policy locally, and this chain goes on to set up an end-to-end connection of some sort, access to some service in some scalable way. And I know of no system that I could deploy today to do that, and yet it's essential. So I'm really just agreeing with your question, and I would have thought that it should be key to both of those projects, and it's certainly key to EGEE to try and develop such a system.
Difficult question for me, because our project, Grande project, was driven by the Gion network, because the contracts will end of next year, and we like to have some results out of this project in this time. So our testbed will be ready for service in beginning next year, and we will have first tests, and all we know that UNI, optical UNI, will be available not so soon. Is in the UNI release 1, we have no gigabit Ethernet incorporated, and so we have to do something in parallel, some developments. The version 2 is not available fully. But here now our discussions going on, and we have formulated a lot of questions we have to answer during the project time. We don't have really the question now on the desk. It will be the result during research activities in the next 3 years. But we imagine where the answer can be, and what we will do next time to bring applications to the network. It's really a point where we have to focus on, because it should be a very practical testbed.
Yeah, I only can agree. What we have in Garden, if you remember the work packages, so it's work package 6 actually, which deals with applications, with grid, with content, with storage. And definitely it's a significant part, big part of Garden. Once the network is up and running, then to start testing with those applications and application providers. So we already have some partnerships here, or we are thinking about some partnerships here for grid computing, definitely also for storage. Coming back to the standard interfaces, it's true that there is only UNI 1.0 specified today. 2.0, which will extend then to gigabit Ethernet or 10 gig, is not there, but it will for sure come. And again, I would say these projects are also intended to drive standardization and to contribute to standardization. So we cannot take everything for granted and for existing today. Another big thing which is not there is external NNI, which is the necessary interface between different optical domains. So this is also work which is going on, and we expect to get output of Garden to drive standardization, or to deliver valuable input for standardization there.
Can I get some more specific answers about what kind of grid applications you're looking at? Perhaps you can't name them because it's secret, but it would be nice to know a little bit more concrete from both of you.
I do not want to comment here about that, but maybe in a closer round, in a closed round, we can definitely discuss that.
May I make an ideal example? What maybe Victor and myself are dreaming of. Typical example is that the biologist you saw this morning wake up in the morning, go to his grid application client and says, now I want to do this genome comparison. I want to compare totally a man and a rat, which requires a lot of computation, a lot of power, a lot of storage around, etc., etc. I sit down on this interface, which go down to the middleware, and the middleware asking, who are you, sir? You're asking a lot of resources around the world to do this stupid comparison between a man and a rat. So, okay, I need to authenticate myself with a role. I'm on a train because I forgot to authenticate myself. Now I need to do it with my mobile phone. So I'm able to use something which is middleware integrated like PAPI and PERMIS to tell the machine out there simply with a URL and no bandwidth. It's me, the director of the Biological Computing Center, which has the right and the role to do this kind of stupid computation. So set it up. The broker goes out, look for resources, and the broker itself is able to go down to the switches and the routers just to set up the needed quality of service and bandwidth which is needed to do the file transfer between the Genoma data bank somewhere and the supercomputer center in Australia the other side, which is empty because it's night. And that works. So that is the ideal scenario we're trying to integrate. And of course we want to do this because it works with different vendors, different machines, because it's standardized by some RFC, which says this is the way to do it. Is this clear enough, what we are aiming to do? It's not yet there. It's not going to be there for at least a number of years. Still, I'm afraid, but that's the effort we're trying to do.
I try to play an American audience now. Yeah. And if I want to connect my grid computers to whatever testbed I will deliver it for whichever project, then I need to go between different domains. I need to go between different vendors. And the only weak thing I see in Garden is that it's going to be a single vendor. That means maybe one day I will have to throw away my routers, which are also from different vendors, to connect to your testbed, unless there will be some cooperation. I see two complementary projects that could be as one. I know there are political reasons why they're not together, but I'm only worried that some solutions might not be feasible. That's why I brought this example with mesh restoration, that everybody's developing but nobody's using the entrance, or maybe almost nobody. So I wonder if one day somebody will develop advanced bandwidth allocation techniques, but I will not be able to use because my equipment does not comply to UNI. And anyways, we have a lot of this old equipment for a long time because of the financing model that they have. They cannot just simply change it year by year because UNI 2.0 is coming. So that's my issue. Yeah.
Can I just answer by saying, do you know any protocol which is not supported by our equipment? So having said that, definitely once there is a standard protocol, we will support it in Garden. Number one. Number two, we are definitely open for interoperability tests. The only reason we want to stay in the first phase single vendor is because it's much easier to set up a network much faster. Okay? Because we know that we have the standards implemented, or we know even our weak points, and bring that network up and running. If you start from the very beginning multi-vendor, you will not be the same speed. Definitely once that network is running, we have to open up and to do interoperability testing. And we will only support standard interfaces, nothing proprietary, as soon as a standard is there. So if there is no ENNI standard, we cannot support that. But once it is there, we will support it. And so we are working on that, definitely.
I guess just most of our equipment is not even UNI 1.0. That's my issue.
Okay.
There is your background will be on one of these new interfaces and possibly not with others. Sorry, I finished.
Yeah, okay. I need to let you not starve, of course, and I need some kind of conclusion. I have a mixed feeling from this meeting, and the mixed feeling is, well, you all are saying that, yes, all the things and projects we are trying to propose are important, they should be done, but I also feel that, aren't you saying that is going to happen anyhow, and we don't need to do anything special for them? This worries me quite a lot. Or are you simply too shocked by the idea that you have to react to what is being asked to you, so I'm wrong, they're not going to happen so close, but you're going to do them anyhow? I want this kind of feeling before I go to lunch. Otherwise, you will ruin my lunch. I will stay thinking about that all over the time. I don't think they will happen without ourselves anyhow. Yeah, Roberto.
I would like to come back to the choice of the applications to be run on the grid, because this is not at all a trivial question. High energy physics, biology, Earth observation are very good customers of the grid, but they are always the same partners in the currently going on grid projects. They are in the other grid, they are in EGE. But the problem is that you should find some other applications, mainly from industry and society services, that could use profit of the grid. Because, after all, biology, high energy physics are very small communities. Think about what happened to the web 10 years ago. The web was born in high energy physics at CERN, but the real spread took place when .coms came in and saw that they could profit of this tool. So, we just submitted a short proposal, specific support action, trying to involve digital libraries, e-learning applications, and also, and more importantly, in the industry, automotive, treatment of materials, and so on and so forth, nanotechnologies. So think about that. And you should find some application that really needs 80 gigabit per second.
Very short comment to attempt to close here. I really support that statement. As you say, those applications that know they need this, well, they would, wouldn't they? And perhaps going back to the suggestion I made earlier, if Terrainer could engender an environment to bring those applications that don't know they need it and don't know what they could get from it, then you could push this forward very much.
Okay, well, any more comment before I let you go for lunch? Okay, well, this was the first attempt to do it. I don't know if it worked exactly as I wanted. I wanted more reaction from you. If I was in the State, I probably have got a number of tomato and vegetables here, but a number of nice ideas as well. So thank you for coming, and we will try to work it out on the next day. Thank you.